Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham. Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, a little, I'm a little tired, you know?
Yeah,
A lot of curling.
it's been a long week, for sure. And more curling coming up, Scott. The Everest Club National Championship is right here in the nation's capital, starting right now as we speak.
Wow, just won't
Yeah.
quit.
No, things are happening as we sit here. Nunavut, Northern Ontario is the feature game on the Curling Canada YouTube channel over at the Hunt Club here in Ottawa. So if you are not fully curled out, there's stuff to watch. More stuff coming up later this week, which we'll talk about later in the show. But of course, the 2021 Canadian Olympic Curling Trials kind of took everything over yesterday, Sunday, November the 25th or 28th, excuse me. That was really the focus of the curling world. The Euros were done at that point. Nothing else major was going on. There were, of course, spiels on the cash circuit, but really the eyes of the curling world were on Saskatoon. Scott, so were ours, and it was quite a day indeed.
Yeah, the women's game seemed to be, I would characterize it as a game of misses rather than a game of makes, which, you know, goes along with the theme of the week. If I'm taking away anything from the women's event, the men's event was sort of the opposite, but still ended on a miss. So, you know, it was great shot making throughout the whole game. And then one little mistake just did in Team Jacobs. So how do you want to talk about this? You want to go chronologically?
Yeah, but I actually want to talk about what you said there first, because how do you feel about, just in general, because there was some minor discussion of this, how do you feel about shots or games ending on misses, which we saw, of course, both yesterday? I think it's exponentially more fun when a game ends on a make, and whenever it's over on a miss, independent of who wins, I typically don't much care, but it's more fun when you see somebody make a great shot, like the Pat Simmons broom throw, right? That's way more fun. Gushue making the shot in St. John's, Cooey in 2017. That is more fun than when, say, Rachel Holman in 2018, I believe, or 2019, misses against Chelsea Carey, right? Like that, to me, is just a more satisfying way to end a game. But what do you think?
Yeah, of course. I'm totally with you on that, because you tune in to see these athletes performing at the highest level. And when it's a win because somebody missed a pretty straightforward shot, that's a real deflating. If it's because they missed because I set up so well that it was nearly impossible to make, then that's a different thing.
Yeah, no question. So it was kind of tough to watch it in that respect yesterday at the end. But yeah, let's take it in chronological order. By far, to me, the more interesting game was on the women's side. Tracy Fleury and Jennifer Jones. Jennifer Jones, of course, wins in an extra end. Lots to talk about here, Scott. Where should we start?
Let's start right at the beginning, Sean. In the first end, Tracy Fleury gives up a steal.
Yes,
to Jennifer Jones on a shot that was a curious choice.
Yeah, you didn't like this. So we actually watched this game together. Yeah, in the moment, you did not like this call.
No, I didn't think it was like playing to her strengths. I thought it was risky to try and, you know, you're playing in your first final, get your one, get your sort of feet under you. But giving up the steal the way they did, making that call, just, yeah, it didn't sit right with me. And, you know, we watched the Rachel Holman Chelsea Carey game in 2017, and you said Chelsea Carey needs to get 2 in the first end. And I thought Tracy Fleury needs to score or blank in the first end. She can't, like, her first hammer, she can't afford to give up a steal. And I guess I was right, because it turned out to be the difference in the game at one point.
That
But
wasn't the only that wasn't the only 1 point that was lost
no, of
over
course
the
not.
course of the afternoon.
But you just think, like, I would, if it was me, I would want to get settled. I get my one. I've got a lead. I've been doing this all week, scoring, and it just sort of set the game off on a bad foot.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't remember, the situation was Jennifer Jones had one back forefoot in about the 5 o'clock position, if you look at it from the overhead. Tracy Fleury had one in the top 8 foot, kind of above it. I think it might have actually been overburied, the Jones one. And there was a corner guard up as well that was covering everything. And Tracy Fleury decided to play a sort of a backline shot to try to move the Jones to try to score 2. And Scott, you like the draw in the moment. I didn't mind it, thinking, all right, you miss it, you're down 1. Who cares? Also, and what ended up happening, if they had been off it a little sooner, because she rubbed off of her own top 8 foot, you get that top 8 foot one a little thicker, you roll in to score. So there was, a pro side miss on that. She won a game earlier in the week on essentially the same shot in the 9th end to score 3 in one of her games. So I didn't really mind it in that position. You just, the benefit of getting the 2 there is so huge that I'm okay with that risk reward math that Tracy Fleury does in that moment.
I think, that's probably what was going through their minds. For me, in a big game like that, I know you don't want to play differently than you've been playing the whole week, but
you don't.
Just seemed to me an unnecessary risk. Get your one, be happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, the draw wasn't easy either, though, given what we saw the rest of the day.
Well, yeah, okay, but Tracy Fleury, if I think about what's she best at, it's those draws.
Yes, she's a very good soft weight player, but that was a soft weight shot. So anyway, we're not going to agree on it. I think the next big flashpoint in the game is the 3rd end. Jennifer Jones is set up for a 3, maybe even a 4. There's a situation, she's sitting 3. Tracy Fleury hits and rolls out, and Jennifer Jones is line 2 with her first one. She has the hammer. It's 1-1 at this point. She has a open draw to sit 3. And Tracy Fleury, you heard them on the mic talking about potentially freezing. There was one back 4 just on the center line. And if Jennifer Jones makes it, they're considering trying to freeze there to get out of the end in its entirety. Of course, if you miss, you're going to give Jennifer Jones potentially a shot for 4, at least a shot for 3. And Jennifer Jones puts it all the way through, pitches it into the hack. We've all been there, but it's one of those moments where you're looking at least a 3 if you're Jones, barring a miraculous Tracy Fleury shot there. That felt like the first big missed opportunity in the game.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. I think if she'd made it, Fleury was going to freeze. They weren't going to just be happy giving them 3, and they got a real bailout on that shot from Jones. So you're right. Next big missed opportunity is this shot here. I think all week it's been a little bit faster drawing from the inside out,
right?
And I think they knew that it was just an overthrow, and the sweepers knew that it was heavy. Like, just a little mental mistake in the moment there.
Absolutely. So then Tracy Fleury comes back with the 2 of her own in the 4th, blank the 5th, and then we have singles the rest of the way. Scott, any other?
Sean, the next point is in that 6th end when Jones should have had 2.
Yep.
She hit the Fleury rock and rolled like just a fraction too far, and it was a measure.
Yes.
In the end, that was another, like, oh, that should have been an easy 2, and just a little mental slip, and then, I mean, again in the 10th end. Right?
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about the one in the 6th first, before we get to the one in the 10th, because I actually think the 9th end is more interesting. And so in the 6th, it's a draw that they either overswept or underswept, and it's kind of hard to tell because it rubs off Jones. There's a bunch of junk in the 4 foot, kind of in a straight line. Jones is sitting shot on the button and trying to draw in for the second points, and it's a little heavy. And it rubs off and goes too far into the 4 foot. So if they sweep it less, it's going to touch the Jones stone that shot stronger, might not get as big of a bump off to the side. Whereas if they sweep it more and earlier, it might come down to the flurry stone that was at the back of the 4. So kind of in between on the line call on that spot. Yes, and it does measure, and Jones misses out on another big point.
These are the kind of mistakes that you're not used to a team like Jennifer Jones making throughout her whole career. So those two big ones there, I still thought she was in control of the game, but also like it just felt like they could have put them away, and that Fleury would throughout the game get feeling a little bit better about the ice and the stones and getting a little more confident. And we saw them stick around, but it just seemed to me like it was mistakes that was keeping the game so close.
Yes, definitely that was the case. So then we get so the single and 6, single and 7, they blank 8. The 9th is a very interesting moment here. Caitlin Laws has a chance. So everything's kind of lined up, and the angles are in Jones's favor with her stones frozen on some flurry stones, and there's this potential to on Caitlin Law's last to kind of just get rid of everything. Russ even said maybe there's a blank here, even though there were 6 rings or 6 rocks in the rings, and only 5 left to come. But Laws misses hers. It turns into just a straight peel of a center guard, and Fleury keeps bringing stuff in. And on Jennifer Jones' last one, it's the classic discussion: what do you want in the 10th end? Because she put the broom down initially. She tapped for the draw and asked the other end, and Jocelyn Peterman says, "Let's pick it out and keep the hammer." So that's something that we've seen it more on the men's side, teams doing that, than on the women's side. So a few teams will do it, but not as much as we've seen on the men's side. So that was, I thought, a curious choice. Jones, of course, makes the shot, gives up the steal for one to keep the hammer coming home. But that was something different that especially Jennifer Jones, who's so good at controlling the front of the house, so good with angles and rocks in play, that I like being up 1 there, especially if I'm her. But what did you think of that decision?
Well, that's something we talked about in the moment that, yeah, I'd always rather be up 1. The winning percentage is it's about 20% trying to steal if you're tied, right?
Yep.
So you have a 20% chance to win if you're trying to steal when you're tied. So to try and have to steal, no, she's going to have the hammer. But the way that the game had been going, a 2 was not a given.
No.
And then I'm like, well, then you get your 1 and you're going to have to steal anyway in the 11th, right? So would I rather be the team that forces that's up 1, try to force the opponent to 1, and then have the hammer in the extra? I would all day.
For sure. I agree with you. But these teams don't feel that way, a lot of them. They'd rather have that brick coming home. So that's the situation. Jennifer Jones has the hammer coming home. This end does not start particularly well for Jennifer Jones. The key shot, really, in the end, before the final shot at the end, Liz Fife misses a double peel on overlapped corner guards. And that allows Jennifer Jones to play a hit and roll underneath and set up the 2. It's really this isn't why they lost the game, of course, but this is a shot that if you look back at that end, that Liz Fife is probably going to replay over and over again. It's one of those shots that she's going to make 99 times out of 100, and unfortunately that was the one in the 10th end of the trials final, and it's really created a very good opportunity for Jennifer Jones.
These are the kind of misses that you really hate to see. I guess we'll talk about a couple more later, but for a front end player whose job is to peel, like peels are relatively simple, and she didn't just miss, she nosed what she was trying to peel instead of making a double. So she left 2 guards there. And yeah, you're right. That's going to be one that's going to haunt her for a while. In the end, her team had a chance to, make up for that mistake.
It's
but
hard to, though.
It's so hard, those kind of shots, when you're just like, I was like, so close, and just unable to do it.
Well, Tracy Fleury, in that moment, right when it happened, she flips the switch. The next shot, like Jocelyn Peterman makes a draw, and so it's still Fleury sitting 1, but Fleury tries to come in and play a freeze, come around, sit 2. And it's game on for her. She never goes back to trying to peel. She's kind of all in at that point, probably to force, given where the guards were, but she's all in, and she's not messing around with the front at any point after that shot. And those 2 guards are not touched at all. for the rest of the end. And Tracy Fleury really did have to chase through the rest of the end.
Yeah, you hate to be put in that position where you don't have hammer and you're chasing around guards, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have hammer and you're the one putting the pressure on by going around guards, you feel a lot better than if you're the one chasing.
So the end continues. Jocelyn Peterman Stone does not move for the rest of the end. On Jennifer Jones' last, she goes back 4 foot to sit the 2, and then Tracy Fleury with her last attempts the freeze. And for Tracy Fleury, it is an unfortunate situation as The Rock over curls a little bit, and Jennifer Jones has what we thought in the moment was a relatively straightforward hit to win.
Yeah, it was an out-turn hit, and Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the shot that's been plaguing her the last couple of years, isn't that right?
That's what they say, yeah, that her outturn has been less consistent than the inturn for sure.
Yeah, and you were there. Our TV sort of froze in the moment, but when it came back, The Rock was halfway down the ice, and they were like, Caitlin was screaming for the sweep. So I don't know, like if she just got it started, if it was on the center line and started moving really early, what was going on there, but definitely missed it the wrong way. You can imagine a situation where she'd hit it like high side,
right,
and then bounce into her own and push her own shot rock that was already there a little farther and too far out. You never imagine an over curl hitting it low and rolling the shooter out.
I went back and watched this today and looked at it a few times. And it's hard given the TV, what they show and what they don't show. But I noticed when I looked at it back that it really appears to be the release. Jennifer Jones's release is very soft on that hit in the 10th. So by that, I mean, she's not getting a lot of rotation. The rock kind of just comes out of her hand as opposed to any sort of positive rotation on the stone. So I went back and looked at the pick in the 9th, which was also an outturn. And I watched both of them a few times. And from what I can tell, the shot in the 10th had about a quarter rotation less than the shot in the 9th. And they're both about the same weight. So I feel like that's a pretty good comparison. So the one in the 9th end got a full rotation and a half down the sheet from her hand. The one in the 10th, about a rotation and a quarter. So that lack of rotation is going to add more because the stone is going to grab more on the ice. So it's going to pull it more in the direction of the curl. And I think that's what it was. It's not a dump for sure. I think it's just a soft handle because the weight was fine and they were on it right away. But it's that little, just that little tiny thing, a quarter of a rotation on a curling stone, in my estimation, is really what leads to that. And it's those tiny things in curling that can add up and are so important over the course of a game. And that's a small technical mistake that you don't necessarily expect from Jennifer Jones. But in a big moment like that, it happened. Unfortunate timing for her. But that's what I think happened in my looking back at it later, like afterwards, because we were so shocked in the moment when we watched it. But with more sober eyes today, that's what I noticed on that shot.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Usually what is it on draws? You want about 3 rotations the whole way down. So
yeah, some are going as much as, I think now it's up to like 4.5 at this point.
Oh yeah, they've been experimenting with that. Yeah. We talked about that with Jonathan and Ryan yesterday or on Saturday. That's a significant difference when you're throwing she was probably throwing like a 9-second hit for those 9 and 9.5. So
9.5,
yeah, that'll really add up. And if you're not crisp and positive with it, you know, there's a chance always if you're positive on the center line, though, it stays on one side and won't come back. So those are really tricky places to hit.
Yeah, no question.
But yeah, small technical mistake leads to that. And so Sean, at the time, this is Tracy Fleury thought she had lost the game.
Correct. Based on her reaction, yes, she thought she had lost. Her mother thought she had lost. Father-in-law thought she had lost.
She was shocked that Jennifer Jones missed this. Did you think that they had any chance in the extra?
Yeah, I did. I really did. And it's Jennifer Jones. She's pretty unflappable, but it's got to be harder for the team who missed, because the team who had the miss against them, it's like you were standing on the gallows and the sheriff goes in, not today.
Yeah.
like, so almost more of a sense of relief that I would, so that's how I felt going into it, that, Jennifer Jones is still going to play a good end. Jennifer Jones and the team, they're going to be able to put pressure on Tracy Fleury, but that relief I thought would just be palpable, and more so, you have the hammer coming home in a game.
Mhm.
So I did think that they would be able to score this point.
I understand, like, and the hammer, like we talked about it, it's about an 80% chance of you winning
Yeah.
that game. That said, they looked to me to already be defeated, and then to try and switch that gear again and get back into the mindset of, oh no, we're still playing. I think that was tough for them to do, and obviously we saw in the 11th end what happened. But I sort of thought, well, okay, Jones probably can still do this.
Yes, and she does. And I just want to say a quick note to intern outturn on Jennifer Jones. For the week, her intern hits 83%, 81%, and outturn hits at 80%. So not that much of a difference this week. But yeah, that has been where there's been a disparity. There's a disparity in the hit and roll numbers for over the course of the week, a 12-point difference there, where the intern was much, much better, but a much smaller sample size. And she did pick Tracy Fleury's pocket in one of the ends, one of the blanks, maybe it was 7, with a beautiful hit and roll out to the wings on an
Yeah.
outturn. So yeah, there's a difference there for sure, but she definitely cleaned it up over the course of the week. So the 11th end, Scott, this one, I thought it was pretty well played by both teams, if I'm being perfectly honest. I didn't see anything really shocking here. I thought it was pretty clean, and Tracy Fleury and the team did pretty much what you're supposed to do, as did Jennifer Jones and her team. And it comes down to one shot.
Yeah, and I think the tick was not made by McCush, so there was some chasing around the center guards right away
Yep.
once the first tick was not made. So maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. So maybe the slight mistake there, but yeah, overall pretty well played. And just the last shot was in a tough spot. And when you're playing to go to the Olympics and you have one shot, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Like we're going to talk about later with the men's side. So it was a hard shot. It just didn't get quite out to the stick, it seemed. And it started curling really, really early. The sweepers weren't able to hold it. And Jennifer Jones, your Canadian rep at the 2022 Winter Olympics.
Yeah. So a couple things here. You do have a situation in the end where, over the course of the peels and hitting back and forth, run backs, Selena Negevin makes a run back with her last one. And but that does leave the center guard. That's the ultimate score point. So Jones draws around on her first, and Tracy Fleury attempts a run back because it's her own stone on her first one, misses it, and Jones puts up a guard pretty much in the same spot. I think it was a little under curl, which gave the opportunity to Tracy Fleury. So Tracy Fleury tries very similar shot to what she tried back in the first end with the other turn to get the stone. And Scott, again, I watched this back again today with sort of more sober eyes and not being as much in the moment on both of Tracy Fleury's shots. And I want to preface this by saying that Tracy Fleury is 1,000 times better than I will ever be. But on both of her shots in the 11th end, and Tracy Fleury is a very good technical player, she's made the switch to have her hips high in the hack as opposed to do the rock back and forward, which I really like. The fewer moving parts you have, the more repeatable your delivery is. But on both of her shots in the 11th end, if you go look, she has a very minor fishtail where she comes out and then her trail leg comes back to her right. So if you're watching on TV, back to the left, back to the center line, they're both interns. And she misses both of them on the inside, the two shots. And so that fishtail indicates a little bit that her hips were not totally square as she comes out of the hack. And that's obviously going to be detrimental to your chances to make the shot. But it's again a very small technical thing that I noticed I noticed it in the moment too, that I thought her back leg wasn't totally straight, and it sort of confirmed when I watched it back today. And that's just, to me, the situation that you train so much to just have it embedded in you what you're supposed to do when you're in the hack, and then you have this moment here, this huge moment, and this tiny little technical thing contributes to an overcurl twice that
Mhm.
loses you the chance. And she was so good all week because I went back, and on this one I actually went back to the 2019 Masters final because I found a few interns there in similar spots,
Mhm.
and she's so good at keeping her shoulders square and her hips square. And in these two shots, it just was a little bit off, you could tell, and she ends up overcurling, crashes on the guard, and loses the game. It's really unfortunate that that happens, but that's just the way the game goes sometimes.
Yeah, pressure of the moment, in a big spot there. This team is really quite good. We'll see what happens with them in the next 4 years,
Mhm.
but they've got Chelsea Carey sitting on the bench there.
Yeah.
Who knows what'll happen with that? So good experience for them all. I don't think we're done seeing these players playing at the top level, and you know, look out, Scotties, with the Manitoba field a little smaller.
Yeah, so one team fewer in the Manitoba field for the Scotties, with actually two, actually, if you really think about it, because Carrie Anderson ain't going to be playing in that either. So
Hmm.
you have two powerhouse teams who you'd normally see at a Manitoba Scotties who won't be there. So Tracy Fleury and her team are going to be the, I think, runaway favorites in that event when it comes. So congratulations to Jennifer Jones and her team. Very excited for them. They were obviously very pleased with the result. Jennifer Jones very emotional. She's saying after the game, this was the first big win for her since her father passed, and she
Mm.
felt that it was she could talk to. She felt that he was with her. Some people on TV might have noticed that her right eye. What she was having some difficulty with it over the course of the week, and she said that was an issue her dad had throughout most of his life, that
Mm.
a watery right eye, and it popped up this week. So she felt that there was a connection there, that he was with him, which I thought was kind of cool. Of course, it's exciting. Caitlin Law's third straight Olympic appearance, 2 gold medals in the previous 2 Olympics, and Dawn McEwen makes her return as an Olympic gold medalist, and of course, the great Lisa Weigel going to back Olympic Games, this time with Jennifer Jones. And there was some very polite yet coded language in some of the material that was coming out, not from Lisa Weigel, but from people around who are people who we know who are close with Lisa Weigel. Just saying things. Again, not explicit things, but
Mm.
you knew what it meant.
Yep. Yep.
So there you go on the women's side. Quick note just about the playoffs. Carrie Anderson and Krista McCarville, that game on Saturday afternoon was kind of weird back and forth. And again, you want to talk about pressure of the moment. What happens? Miscommunication on Carrie Anderson's last one in the 10th end of that tiebreaker game, where they sweep it, rub off. They're probably going to score the 2 on a draw to win the
Hmm.
game in the 10th. Just again, those little things that are magnified in these moments. That, yeah, if that's the third end on Tuesday morning, okay, it happens.
Yeah.
But it was the 10th end of a playoff game, and it really magnifies the little things that you need to do correctly all the time to be able to win at that level. Again, I don't mean that as a criticism, more as just an observation of how important the little things are in these types of events.
Yeah, like such a weird spot, where it goes in between two rocks. Either way, a few inches either side would have been okay.
Yep.
Yeah, real tough communications on that one.
Yes. So overall, on the women's side, I think the 2 right teams were in the final based on what we saw over the course of the week. They were the 2 best, and Tracy Fleury was the best, certainly for the course of the week. Disappointing weeks, certainly for Rachel Holman, going 2-6, finishing at the bottom of the table. But it was an exciting Friday with a big win for Kelsey Rock over Carrie Anderson. Gets us the tiebreakers with Scheidegger and McCarville coming in. So overall, a fun week on the women's side. Some surprises there, but how it all shook out in the final. Those were the 2 teams based on the week who you probably won in that game, and Jennifer Jones wins. So the already anointed greatest of all time in Canadian women's curling gets another crack at the Olympics. Scott, the queen stays queen.
Yes, that's true. And not only the greatest in women's curling, probably in Canadian curling, period.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, she was. Or she is. She's really, really good.
Yeah. Speaking of really, really good, Sean.
Oh, we can't go to the men's game because it wasn't really, really good, was it? What?
The shot making was great.
The shot making was pretty good. I'll admit, Scott, I watched it all, but I didn't watch it as closely as the women's game. I did not find this nearly as compelling as the women's game. But what is your take on it?
Well, my take was that the shot making was just so good, and the difference between the two teams wound up being the marks at third.
Yeah,
you talked about it in the preview. That is Mark Nichols the most important player in this field, and I said, well, maybe Mark Kennedy, and that's sort of what it came down to in this event or this game last night. I think Nichols like consistently not bailing the team out, but like forcing the Jacobs team to say, oh, okay, we can't get our deuce. We're going to blank. Mm-hmm. It was his rocks that really made the difference in each of those ends. Yes, they were blanks, but they weren't boring blanks, I would say. Maybe one of them.
Yeah, a couple of them were.
But then, they start pushing in that 8th, 9th, and in that 10th end too. And it got really interesting. And the Gushue team was just putting the rocks in better positions than the Jacobs team. The one exception would be like the one shot Mark Nichols missed all game.
Yeah.
Was his last in the 10th.
Yep.
That it set Jacobs up to score 3.
Like, yeah, they were in position to crack a big net end there to win the game.
Yeah, to win the game. And then I got a slight miss from Mark Kennedy. Gushue made a big hit and roll. It was still on the table to win or to tie at least. And Brad Jacobs has been sort of money with this kind of weight all week. Mm-hmm. And he just cranks it up a little bit. The adrenaline's going. I think that was a little bit heavier than he wanted to throw. And it was outside. And they tried to bring it back, but couldn't.
You could hear Mark Kennedy the whole time on getting on Ryan Harden and like really dig. Like it was a big panic call. And it was a hard shot for sure.
It was, yeah.
Like it wasn't easy. Gushue did everything he could to make it as hard a shot as possible. And it's one of those things too, where when you talk about the Gushue team, or at least when I think about the Gushue team, the key for them is the rock positioning for sure. Like they're so good at making sure the rocks are in the right place and controlling the angles so well. Technically, I will note, I think Brad was sliding higher yesterday than he was earlier in the week. I'll have to go back and watch video of that. But that is certainly a concern moving forward because he has had hip issues in the past, but it's just something to keep an eye on. But Mark Nichols, I said this on the preview, he can win a game almost by himself. Like I think Brad Gushue is so good and shoots so well because Mark Nichols is so good. Like he really is just the most important third in the game. I think he's really quite phenomenal. And you're right, the one miss there in 10, but Mark Nichols was the one who took control of that game. Jacobs was pushing, and he talked in the post game a little bit about how he was going for in the second half some easy twos. They wanted to push a little bit, but don't push too much because you give up a steal, it really could swing the game given how tight it was. So his push wasn't that strong in the second half. And because of that, Nichols was able to make those bailout shots. And it wasn't often Gushue who had to make them in the second half of the game. It was Nichols who was making the key shots in order to get those blanks, to ensure those blanks that Jacobs was pushing through in the second half. So I think when we look at that game, or when I look at that game, it's another example of the 2019 Briar, where Mark Nichols almost won it by himself. Not quite as much last night because, as everyone has said, Jeff Walker was phenomenal last night, again, with rock positioning. But it's, if Mark Nichols does that for a week in Beijing, you would expect this team to be in the gold medal game there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talked about some of the top women's teams in the world watching that women's final and thinking, oh, okay, well, Yeah, I can beat them.
Yeah.
I know that some of the men's teams are probably watching this thinking, oh boy, these guys are going to be hard to beat. These
Yeah.
guys are going to be a tough out when it comes to the Olympic Games. So just a difference in the shot making was
Yeah.
what I noticed in this game. Brad Jacobs, even himself, was making some perfect like hit and rolls, and then Gushue would come and just tap it out, like,
Yeah.
and it just these sort of incredible shots. And Cheryl Bernard talked a lot about Mark Kennedy's line calls last night. I really did notice that he was really, really good at getting the sweepers on and calling the curl when it needed to be done. He was very, very precise with his line calling last night. So where he wasn't succeeding as much as usual in his shot making, he was trying to make up for it with his line calls, and it was doing quite a good job the whole game.
Yeah, no question about that. Yeah, he was really on point, and they were on point with their weight control too. And this is
Yeah.
something that at the rec level, there's not much you can take from either of those games yesterday and say, hey, let's put this into the rec game. But one of them, I think, is that people do tend to very much overthrow on hits. That you don't need to put it through the boards; you just need to get it over the line when you
Yeah.
make a hit. So
Yeah.
at most curling facilities, a hack weight shot might not get the rock out. Certainly backline won't get it out at really any rec facility. But board weight you can throw. You don't always have to throw the high hard one on a nose hit. So that's a lesson that we it comes up every year when there's a lot of curling on TV. All of a sudden at the rec level, more runbacks are being called, more doubles. Hopefully maybe more board weight shots get called now after that performance last night.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say about this game, Team Jacobs was low on time, and they called their final timeout during Mark Kennedy's last, I think.
Yeah, and they didn't need to. And they say it. Like, that's not me criticizing them. That's them saying it in the moment.
Yeah, and they said, okay, we're going to have to be quick with our last two, but that's a mismanagement of time where they really should have saved that for Brad's last. They had 33 seconds left on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And 30 seconds is quite a lot, but when it's ticking down, you don't want to be in the position where you slide out with 5 seconds left, right? Like, I think Kui's probably the only guy that can do that.
Yeah.
So that maybe that plays into him missing the last, not feeling as comfortable with enough time in the hack to really focus. But that slight mistake may have cost them the Olympics.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it was a game. It was very close, nip and tuck, very tense the whole way. Probably not surprising that it was low scoring. Gushue for the week gave up 4.2 points a game, and as did Brad Jacobs. So neither team was giving up a lot of points. The only two teams in the field on the men's side that did not give up a 3 all week long. So just a very impressive effort for both sides, and a combined, Scott, over the course of the week, including last night, a combined 3 stolen ends against for these two teams. So they were the two best teams in the field this week, no question.
Yeah, incredible.
So elsewhere on the men's side, a good week for Kevin Kui, goes through at 6-2. Tough semifinal game. In the fourth end, they had the rocks in the wrong spots. They missed, as Kevin said afterwards, 3.5 shots, and Brad Jacobs makes the double. And then they go all in the sixth end to try to force the Jacobs team. Kevin got his one in the fifth, and in the sixth end, they just go all in, drawing around. They're not hitting anything. I like that strategy decision. Sixth end, you're down 3. The other team has the hammer. They haven't been giving up anything. Yeah, okay, you get blown out. Like, so what? Or the fifth end, excuse me. So what? You get blown out. Who cares? You lose by 1, you lose by 7. It's the exact same thing. Go for it. Really push the envelope there. And I'm totally okay with it. And they just ended up with the rock in the wrong spot on Kevin's last one. But I saw some criticism there of, maybe you should have played more conservatively in the fifth end. Like, no, go try to win the game. Try to win the game.
Yeah, not against this Jacobs team. You can't just sort of bide your time, and even forcing them then be down 4 with half the game to go. They're too good. So yeah, I agree with you. Just go for it. Go all in.
Yeah, giving up a 2 there is just as bad as giving up the 4.
Yeah.
So playing more conservatively, especially around BJ's first one, like, that's not going to get you anything at that point. You're all in. You're pot committed, and I liked it.
And you talked about Team Jacobs and Gushue giving up 3 total steals amongst them.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Like, you're not going to steal your way back on this team either.
No.
You're going to, without trying something drastic.
Yeah.
So, making a concerted effort to go for it. I'm totally okay with that too. I told you I went out to get groceries on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I came back and
8-1.
the women's game was on, and I was like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't get to see much of this because it was over faster than I thought it would be. But the box score and the comments kind of tell the story.
Yeah. So that was that for the men's side. So Brad Gushue and his team are going to the Olympic Games, second time for Nichols and Gushue. They, of course, have those gold medals from Torino back in 2006. First time for Jeff Walker and Brett Gallant. Of course, the 2 side stories to go along with that kind of make it cool. Of course, yesterday was Jeff Walker's birthday. We did talk about that on the preview, that yesterday was Jeff Walker's birthday. Pretty good birthday present. And, of course, Peterman and Gallant, who are engaged, who get to now go to the Olympic Games together. Last night in the post game, Brett said that when they talked about it before any events, like they said, if we ever go to the Olympics together, it would probably be together as the mixed doubles team.
Doubles.
But nope, they're going to the same Olympic Games with their 4-person teams. So kind of a cool story on that front. And so congratulations to them. We'll have to see who Curling Canada picks as the 5th. With all due respect to Mr. Thomas there, he will not be allowed to go. Maybe they can add him to like the envoy, because he's been around Brad Gushue for so long. Jules will get to go for sure, but I hope that they can include him somehow, because he's not somebody who just came on for this week. He's been around so long, but they will pick as the 5th player somebody else in conjunction with the team. So it'll be curious to see who that choice is. But hopefully Thomas gets to go as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Elsewhere on the men's side was just a couple of things of note. This is another Brad victory. So as Jonathan Havercroft from Rocks Across the Pond pointed out, the pattern in Canada for the men's Olympic skip continues to hold. 2002 starts with Kevin, 2006 Brad, 2010 Kevin, 2014 a Brad, 2018 a Kevin, 2022 it's going to be a Brad again. So I look forward to all of the top level men's skips changing their name to Kevin over the next few weeks, and the 2026 trials final being between Kevin Botcher and Kevin Dunstone. That'll be a lot of fun on that side. Tough week for the young guys in Botcher and Dunstone, both going 3 and 5. Tough week for them. Really tough for Brady Muscowie, who was not able to play for personal reasons, and that really kind of threw off the team early in the week. Colton Lott played well, did the best he could, but that's a huge hit to a team. I don't care who comes in at the last minute like that. That would be very, very difficult to overcome. And Botcher's team never really quite got it going over the course of the week. And everything else kind of fell sort of to what we expected a little bit. But it was a fun week overall, I think, on both the men's and women's side. And now everybody can exhale a little bit, because other than Gushue and Jennifer Jones, there's no Olympic pressure now for 18 months.
Yeah, that's right. The end of the road.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of statements of, oh, this week didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but congratulations to the winner. And we'll see a lot of those. And what's next to come once this season is over will be the lineup shuffles.
Yeah.
Well,
Scott, one of those statements came from us.
That's right.
The tweet that we put out, Jonathan and Ryan won the bad beer bet with us. So I tweeted, obviously not the result we wanted, but we're proud of all the work and effort we put into the quad. We knew it was going to be tough, and that whoever came out on top would be a great representative. So congrats to Rocks Across the Pond. Just an honor to be competing with them. We did lose the bad beer bet with those guys on the trial side. We both had Gushue over Dunstone. So we did well in terms of the net on that by having Gushue win, but we did really poorly on the Euros relegation side and promotion from the B side. But let's focus on what did go well for us on the Europeans. Eve Muirhead appears to be in FU mode. She runs through that field. She gets the big win over Anna Hasselberg very early on Saturday morning here Eastern time. And then Bruce Mowat goes out a few hours later. And after Scott jinxes Nicholas Edin, beats him. And it's a sweep for the Scottish side out to there at the Euros in Lillehammer. So congratulations to those two teams. A couple of surprises that the Swiss missed the playoffs in both the men's and the women's side. Congratulations to Turkey. The women qualify for the first world championship in Turkish curling history. Daniela Jentsch gets a medal for Germany. It's a great story there. Joel Returnaz on the men's side gets the bronze medal. Huge for that team as they are looking ahead to 2026, assuming Joel Returnaz decides to go for another quad. But if not, the other three are younger and very, very good. So good things coming for Italian curling, certainly on the men's side. And well, Stefani did well on the women's side too. So Italian curling looking on an upward slope here as we head to 2026, as that's what that federation has its eye on. But overall, a very interesting week out there in Lillehammer. It was fun to watch here. I was happy that it was on TSN. Our picks didn't do the greatest, Scott, but we got it right where it mattered.
Yeah, I was looking at mine. I did terribly on the Euros. I think I got 1 point on the women's side.
Oof.
For picking Sweden to make the playoffs and or to make the podium.
Right.
And like over on the men's side, yeah, I would say Swiss curling really let me down this week.
Yeah. It was a tough go for the Swiss side. So a couple other things. Russia, Sergei Glukov actually lost the final on the B side. They still get to go to the world qualifier, but that was a bit of a surprise. And the bronze medalist from last year's world championship does have to go to the world qualifier, assuming that that's who goes. I haven't seen the official announcement from Russia yet, but those guys have already qualified for the Olympics. So if they want to go to that, that'll be a curious or an interesting choice to see what the Russian side decides to do for that world qualifier. Also out of this, the Olympic qualifier, the last chance Olympic qualifier, kicks off on Saturday, mixed doubles first, and then the 4-team event. So a couple teams will be going straight from those Euros into the last chance qualifier, including the champion, Eve Muirhead, who, of course, missed the playoffs at the Worlds last year. There are going to be a lot of good teams in those fields. We'll talk about that in the next episode. But a lot going on, Scott, and there's going to be some very tired folks heading off to the last chance Olympic qualifier.
Yeah, it doesn't stop, Sean. It doesn't stop. And for a few provinces too, like the provincial process is going to be starting up the next month or so.
Yeah.
Leading up to play downs and eventually provincials.
Yeah.
So lots of curling on the horizon.
Yes, still a lot going on. Teams now, of course, too, will also in Canada be starting to look at the mixed doubles Olympic qualifier. That happens between Christmas and New Year's this time. We'll also have the Canada or the Continental Cup is coming up. There's one more slam too before the Olympics. So a lot going on in the world of curling, and we will be along to talk about all the things as it continues to proceed here at the tail end of 2020. So Scott, any other big takeaways from the Canadian Olympic curling trials?
I think we got the representatives that are playing the best and going to represent Canada the best. I know we said that in 2017 too, and no medals to show for it, but both of these teams being very experienced at the Olympics, I think will help. And they're both sort of legends, right? So I think both of these teams, we won't see the same lineup configuration in the next 4 years.
I think that's a very likely scenario. I do think, though, that we'll see them next year. I think both of them take a victory lap, would be my initial guess. But that's way too soon to be getting into all that kind of stuff. I am mildly surprised here that we haven't seen any lineup announcements today as we sit today. Here. But once provincials start to wrap up, then we will, and I'm sure we'll start to get them as we get into the new year. But that will do it for the Canadian Olympic Curling Trials 2021. It was a ride. It was a lot of fun. And thanks to everybody who followed along with us on the live streams every day after the afternoon draws. They were a lot of fun. Thanks to all the folks who joined us on the stream as well. Megan, Steph, Dean, Jonathan, Ryan. I think that's everybody who came out. If I missed anyone, my apologies, but it was a lot of fun. And thanks to everybody who watched. It was super fun to engage with y'all in the comments, and really very much enjoy that. If you missed the one we did on Saturday with Jonathan and Ryan, we are planning on December the 13th. Scott, mark your calendar. The bad beer bet will be, I don't know what's the right word, will be fulfilled, completed.
Yeah, paid out, cashed out
on December the 13th over on the Facebook page where we do the live streams. So do pay attention or do join us for that. That should be a good time when we see what Jonathan and Ryan have in store for us as they have won the 2021 Bad Beer Bet. And of course, do just follow along on Twitter and Instagram as well. We'll put up the links to all that kind of fun stuff and any other interesting things we see from the world of curling. So you can follow along at Game of Stones Pod, or head on over to the website, gameofstonespod.com. All of the past episodes are there, plus merch under the merch tab. All the proceeds going to the Sandra Schmirler Foundation and Food Banks Canada. We are matching those. Scott, it is the holiday season. And I wore my Game of Stones hoodie yesterday when we watched the game. I still love those. I've been wearing the Game of Stones toque, very comfortable, the thin slate, keeping me warm. So maybe you got a curling fan in your life. Maybe could be a thing to give one of these items.
Yeah, and Sean, tomorrow also is Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in donating, a lot of places are matching or doubling your donations tomorrow. So pick that cause that's important to you and go for it. Make a donation.
Absolutely. Very well said, Scott. Of course, if you have not yet, do please subscribe to the show wherever it is you get your podcast. Do the likes, ratings, give us some comments. All that good stuff helps other people find the show and helps keep us growing. And if you want to let us know what you want to hear on the show, gameofstonespodcast@gmail.com. So, Scott, we play in a couple hours. We're trying to maintain a winning streak here. Do you think that all of the games we watched, I have not skipped since the trials started. I skipped a couple weeks ago. We had a bye. Now I'm skipping again, having watched all these games. Are you concerned that I'm going to try to go all pro side TV shots here tonight?
I think you might, Sean, and I'll be there to talk you out of
it. We'll see what happens. Yeah, hopefully I can make a couple nice ones tonight, but we'll have to see how it goes. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We'll be back with you again with a new episode very soon. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that insert.
Make the final.